Yeah, cool. We're up to 12.
Mm-hmm. Right on. Okay, well, should we go ahead and get started, Alex?
Sure.
I think that's a good
Awesome.
idea.
Awesome. Let's go ahead. Welcome everyone to tonight's Colorado Theater Guild webinar, Dark Monday Marketing. We're very fortunate to have Alex Miller here with us of Onstage Colorado. He's going to be hosting tonight's event. Alex will be joined by CTG's T. David Rutherford and Ileana Lucera Baron. I'm Abner Genesee of CTG, and I'll help monitor the chat thread and the Q&A for tonight. Matt Meyer of Ligature Creative was scheduled to be here, but had a sudden emergency and will be unable to join us tonight. We hope to be able to share Matt's expertise with you at a future event, but tonight, you're really in for a special treat. Alex has put together a terrific presentation, so I hope you're ready to take notes. Tonight's webinar will run approximately 90 minutes and will be available to review after tonight for a limited time. We'll share those links toward the end of the event. There will be a brief bio break at 7:45. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Alex Miller. Alex, the floor is yours.
All right, thanks, Abner. So I know some of you, but real quick, I started the Onstage Colorado site, I don't know, almost 4 years ago. But my background is in, I was a newspaper editor for many years and a journalist, and I've been in marketing and communications for most of my career. And I've also, I used to do a fair amount of acting and directing and even playwriting back in the day, mostly in the 90s until I started dealing with all these kids. But yeah, I've been on the side of, the other side of the fence, from the theaters. At the same time, I've also been involved, with the theaters, and it's just, there's things that I just wish, everybody knew. And so that's why I reached out to Abner and said, hey, is there, and so from my point of view, with the site that I do, there's a big calendar element to it, which to me is a really key piece of any theater's marketing program. And then of course, we do reviews and stories and things like that. So I'll go ahead and I'm just going to share my screen. Got a little deck here. All right, can you see that okay?
Yes, looks good.
All right. So when Abner and I were kicking this around, we were trying to think of a name for it, and we were just thinking of, like, when theater people have time, tends to be on Mondays, on those dark marketing or dark Mondays. But of course, whenever you have time, you can be doing some of this. So the motto is no empty seats. So we wanted to talk, kind of focus on things that aren't going to, of course, you could always go out and hire a full-time marketing person. Most theaters can afford that. So we wanted to focus on some of the things that are either pretty cheap or even free, because most theaters don't have those people, and also have limited budgets. But the goal is the same. You want to get people to see your show. I mean, you put a lot of work into it, and the last thing you want is empty seats. It's all those empty seats are missed opportunities, to get somebody into your theater to see your work and to gain some revenue from it as well. So the idea is, how can you up your game? Everybody's doing something. Some are doing more than others. Some, the bigger theaters, of course, have more resources. But we just, we were just thinking, if you can commit to at least one day a week, and maybe it is those Mondays or whenever it fits for you, and maybe think about, an hour. And of course, that's going to change. If you've got something about production that's about to stand up, that's going to be a little more labor intensive, but you know, the drumbeat of, you know, keeping your name out there and you know, what's going on is something you want to kind of probably be doing, you know, on a pretty consistent basis. So you know, thinking about the things that are out there that are free, a lot of them are pretty easy to find. You know, there's you know, there's things you can do to that you own, you know, or that you will reach out and get you know, someone to write about you, or put your, you know, your show in their calendar. And there's so many options, and you know, most of these, you know, this is more like public relations, not as much marketing, but they're very closely related. So you know, knowing who your you know, your media is in your area. You know, if you're a theater that really wants to cater to all of, you know, the metro area, or even all of Colorado, you know, you're going to have a bigger bite of the apple you're going to have to do. But if you're, you know, if you're a more of a regional theater and you're really looking for the people in your area, you're going to want to know, you know, who those people are, who those what those media outlets are. And of course, then there's things like, you know, your own website. There's Facebook groups, any place where you think people might be, you know, you might be able to reach people. You know, there's simple things like press releases, which you know, they're kind of like the most basic form of PR, but they still, you know, they still have their place. It's an easy thing to mail out to. And you know, social, of course, everybody's using Facebook, but I think there's some other things out there that may work pretty well too. I mean, Nextdoor is, like, a lot of people are on that platform. Instagram is a great, you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. It's just like, if you don't have these already in your checkbox, I would think about, you know, adding to it, because you know, and TikTok is this crazy growing thing that you know, can get you to some of those younger audiences, and of course it's very visual. And you know, and theater is a visual medium. There's lots of great images and video that can come out of the work you're doing, even in rehearsal. So I would encourage people to, you know, identify those things and, you know, and use them, share them. But then there's, you know, little things like really old things like flyers, and you know, if your church has a newsletter, or you're in the Elks and they've got a newsletter, or whoever, you know, most places like that will be, sure, you know, you just want to have a little something ready to go, a little write-up of some sort. And then the other side that's kind of, you know, near and dear to my heart is the calendar. So and you know, there's the, you know, our Onstage Colorado calendar. There's, you know, the Colorado Theater Guild has one, and all, you know, the usual suspects, the Denver Post. You know, it seems like there's a new website coming up every day. You know, there's you know, Denverite, there's Colorado Public Radio, there's the Denver Gazette, and so all these things is basically free advertising, you know. So the point is, if you're not going after them, it's, you know, you're missing out. It's not, once, you know, there's some legwork up front to get your list done, but once you've got that in place, you can really cover a lot of ground with you know, just a couple of basic things, from emails to posts and things like that. So you know, focusing again on the calendar, you know, I like to think of it as the ultimate freebie. Not only, you know, if you've got a show with you know, 20 or 25 performances, that's 25 free impressions, you know, on a calendar. And of course, you know, we do a statewide calendar, and so does CTG, and we actually use the same WordPress plugin. So they may look different, but they're kind of the same back end. But they, you know, they have, it's a really robust calendar that gives us a lot of ability to filter, and you know, people can find things by, you know, by category and you know, region, things like that, however, you know, the calendar's set up. So, you know, these are, you know, two that, you know, that are real well known to us. But you know, I was talking about newspapers. You know, the Highlands Ranch Herald is my local newspaper, and they've got like a, you know, the one thing you have to know about little newspapers is they're always struggling to fill the damn thing up. So if they've got you know, and that includes the calendar, but you know, they're always looking for stuff to put in there that's local. But if you look at most of these will have some sort of way of saying here's how you can submit. And of course there's the the bigger ones like Westword, but don't forget your local ones. I mean, the Colorado Community Media owns, I think, like 25 or 30 of these papers around mostly the Front Range. But most places have a newspaper, and it's often the case that the only people reading newspapers these days are people in my age bracket and older. But that also happens to kind of the Venn diagram of theater goers and newspaper readers has a fairly decent overlap. So yeah, don't forget about those. I was looking on a couple of these like Westword. I was just wondering like what would come up if I filtered for theater. And this just happened to be one day, but I didn't see any results on here. It doesn't mean there isn't any theater listings. It's just that for this particular day I didn't see anything. And this was, I can't remember. Oh, I think this was the little paper near me. The only thing that came up when I searched under arts and theater was this, this Motown's in Jersey's concert that I think they paid for a feature placement, but that was all that was in there on their website. So it just tells me that there's definitely work to be done by all the local theaters to find these things, and of course these are just a couple of examples of lots of things that are out there. So really, if you to get started, it's just a matter of making a list and having a really good list of calendars. And the thing about lists is you've got to keep them fresh. But you can see, like in this case, it's just calendar at coloradocommunitymedia.com. That's probably not going to change. So you don't necessarily have to make sure that the same person is always there for the calendar. Westword has a form on their site that you can send to. So making that list, and it may be a fairly short list, but there's probably going to be at least a dozen or more places that you're going to want to make sure that you're sending your listings to. So one of the things about those lists is managing it. You might have your own, you might be just using Outlook, and that's fine. I think MailChimp is a really great program because it's free for up until a certain point, and it's how I send out my email newsletters. But it's also it's a pretty easy way to keep it all in one place and keep it updated and send out those targeted lists and or target those lists for emails, and also compared to using something like Outlook or whatever, MailChimp will give you some stats on how many people opened it and things like that, which gives you an idea of how well it's performing. So this is something that's always on my mind is doing a calendar, and I'm not sure who does it at CTG, but I know, so I have one other person who helps me with it, and it's a lot of work, and it's the kind of thing where if the listing came to us in a better form, a lot of times it would just make it easier for us. I guess my thought is, make it easy on the people that you're sending this to. Don't make them search for things. So so the first goal being get your information, have that list ready, and getting your information out to all the calendars that are out there for your free publicity, and then collecting all the elements of your calendar listing and pretty much doing it the same every time. Whoops. Just went haywire here. Sorry about that. So when I think about like the perfect calendar listing that I would like to see, some of this will sound completely self-evident, but you'd be surprised how many submissions I get that don't have all of these pieces, parts, or they're hard to find. So obviously the name of the show, the venue, we keep a separate list of organizers. Some venues, Aurora Fox is the venue, and it's the theater company essentially. That's not the case for a lot of the smaller theater companies. So, we will list the venue as well as the organizer or the theater company. The description, a lot of times people will just lift it from, maybe it's the description that you saw when you bought the scripts for the cast or something like that. But I would encourage you to take a little time to customize it a little bit, but skip the hyperbole. I mean, it's the funniest show of all time, and that kind of stuff is a lot of times I'll in calendar errors are going to cut that out anyway, and just look for more of a kind of a neutral definition. But a lot of I think it makes sense. Some theaters will add in, like they might have information. It's like a clip or a blurb from the New York Times that wrote about the show when it was on Broadway or something like that. I think that's fine to put in there. Other details like there's industry nights on this Monday. It's a lot of theaters are doing sensitive viewer performances. Make sure to note that whether if just use the movie ratings. It's PG or R. If there's any concerns about that. Of course, dates and times we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. Art is another really important part of this that we'll get into a little bit more here in a minute. One of the things that I often find theaters seem not to want to share is the cost of the show. But I mean, when people are looking at a calendar listing, that's one of the things. It's one of the top things they're looking for is like, how much is this? So be sure to include that. And the other thing is, the website for the direct link to the tickets for that particular show may be on Eventbrite or some other platform. So feel free to include that specific one in addition to the the one for your theater. So looking at this perfect listing some more, one of the other things that I often, sometimes I don't know whether it's a comedy or drama. I know a lot of plays and musicals, but I don't know them all. And sometimes it's, I have to go, jump on Google and try and find out because I put categories in. I think most calendars do. And so that's really helpful to just add that. Like I said, the short description. Here's my made-up theater company, the Codpiece Players. This is as short as it gets, but you can certainly add, some of this more stuff like we were just talking about. One of the things that is often a challenge is the pattern of when the show is going to be. So there's some, like Miners Alley is Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7:30 and Sundays at 2, pretty much always for all of their non-kid shows. But a lot of theaters play around with that formula, and repertory theater is particularly challenging to get entered in because the pattern is just broken all over the place. And a lot of times we wind up entering a lot of those shows one by one rather than using like the recurring pattern thing that we've got in our calendar. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec, but always indicate if there's no show on a particular night for whatever reason, or if there are some of those special shows like industry night. So of course there's nothing more important than getting the dates and times right, but like I was saying, I sometimes spend a fair amount of time hunting for details and make it easy. There are times when I have to go through like most of the way towards a ticket purchase to figure out the dates, the times, the cost and things like that. So you definitely don't want to be and if I'm doing that, so too are your patrons. So I think she's on tonight. Is it Bruce is your name?
It's Grace.
Bryce, I'm sorry. You have like the best name. What's your last name again?
Scotland.
Yeah, I mean that's a great name.
Thank you.
But anyway, Bryce sent me this. I asked her like, "Hey, can you send me over the show times?" And she had this like, boom, ready. And Bryce said she created this in. Did you say InDesign?
Correct.
And so that that might be a little advanced for some people, but you could just as easily create this with tables in Word or something like that. But this is a great example of how to like not try and prevent anybody from entering the wrong calendar info, and it's just laid out here beautifully. Obviously there's this is missing a lot of other information that I'm sure, is available on the site elsewhere, the description, prices and all that stuff. But for just, for your own sanity, if you've got a whole season of shows, creating something like this might be a really good way to go. And it's a great thing to just make a PDF of it and share it with those calendar editors and anybody else, who wants to know when your shows are going to be. So thanks for that, Bryce. This is Miner's Alley, which is like the simplest thing ever. This is just the bottom of, I think this is the bottom of their hair promo. That not everybody is working on that schedule, but these are the ones that I'm always like, that's an easy one. That's an easy one to put in the calendar. So talking a little bit more, like I mentioned, the URL specific to that ticket. And the cost and the range, so a lot of theaters will have, a kid's price and all the way up to adult's price. And, I'll usually put in a range of, $20 to $45 or something like that. And then, the art, that show poster, whatever you've got that you can send along is going to make that listing better. So the end result, this is BDT Stage's listing for their SpongeBob show. And this is how it looks on our calendar. So these are kind of all the pieces, parts are in here. It's got a great image. This happened to be, I'm trying to remember. So a lot of times I'll put in production photos in our calendar listings after I get them to replace the show art that I may have gotten 6 months earlier. And so that might have been this one. So, this is just it's a great photo. You've got all your details over here, the cost range and these categories. This helps us separate out by region and the type of theater it is, and what the genre is, that kind of thing, and all your venue information there. Whoops! Oh, weird time. Some of these slides kind of trying to go ahead of me. So that's kind of what that's what you're looking for in your end product. So art is a really big thing that I know it can be difficult for especially smaller operations. You can see this is just a snapshot of a day earlier this month where this is a piece of probably some clip art that they put together, which is perfectly fine. But you can see the actual production photos tend to pop out a little bit more. So the better the art, the more that listing can pop. I will also say that horizontal tends to work better, and not just for our site. As someone who's been doing this kind of stuff for a while, vertically oriented photos or images are just generally a little more challenging to use. So if you do have somebody creating these show graphics for you or photos, I would have them lean toward horizontal, or at least sending both vertical and horizontal, because some verticals work great within within stories or reviews, but not as much for the listings. So this is a little video I just kind of made of one of the things that I sometimes struggle with is the sizing of photos. Sometimes theaters will send, they don't usually send ones that are too small. A lot of times they'll send ones that are too large or inordinately large that probably slow down their email server. But it's just another way to kind of streamline the process is to give the a normal sized photo. So this is me just adjusting this in the Apple preview. So this one came in at so this was almost 20 inches wide at 300 pixels, which is not quite billboard quality, but certainly like cover of Vogue quality. This is one that from Hadestown that I downloaded off the Denver Center's media site, which they don't expect everybody to be using it this way. They just give you the biggest one they've got and let you figure out the rest. But it's pretty simple. I don't know. This preview app comes native with any Mac. I'm not sure. I think there's something similar for PCs. But if you've got Photoshop, or there's a million ways to do this. But the more you can do on the upper end, before you send it in, the better, and it'll also save, you know, some data going over the wire. So this one, you can see I just made this 800 pixels wide and 72 DPI is just, this is about all I would use for most websites. And see, now it's a much smaller beast and easier to manage. And you can also see it's a really tight crop. There's not any extraneous stuff on the edges. So production photos is a thing that I find interesting. You know, some theaters pay professional photographers to come in and do it, and they'll spend, you know, several hours at a dress rehearsal working on those. And some theaters, you know, will just do their best with an iPhone or whatever. But the point is to make sure you send them out. It's like it's one of the other things that I sometimes find myself scrambling for. Is, you know, after I've got a review or a story and I'm ready to post it online and I'm trying to chase down photos, and when I finally get in touch with, you know, whoever the contact is, you know, they've been sitting on them. And so, you know, my point would be like, if you've got a couple of good production photos, you don't have to send out, you know, all 15 or 20 that you know, that were the selects at the end of the shoot. But if you can send out, you know, 2 or 3 good ones in that sort of smaller size to your calendar list, then, you know, there's a better chance they might use them. You know, if they've got a photo like that, they might use it in their feature spot. You know, like a lot of newspapers and websites will they might have a calendar, but they want like a really great photo at the top to kind of draw attention to it. So if you've got, you know, there's more chance they're going to use it if you give it to them. And another thing that is also a really good just general practice is to name your files. So don't send over, you know, the 00734G img.jpg file. If you look at a lot of the theaters will send over the file names are actually contain the names of the actors as well as the photo credit within the file name itself, which keeps it from getting lost. You know, that can be, it's a little bit of a hassle, but it's worth it if you want to have proper IDs on photos of the actors that are in those. So I would just say, you know, the bottom line is, you know, make the most out of those production photos, whether you paid for them or you put the actors through the hell of staging a bunch of shots on dress rehearsal night. You know, use them. Another way to think about images is how you manage them. So email is certainly one way to do it. I definitely, you know, I prefer being able to go onto a site. This is the DCPA's press room with their photos. You can see they're all in here. I mean, this is not new technology by any means, but you know, I can go in here and I can click on this grid view and be able to see. And this gives the, you know, the media outlet that you're working with or whoever the opportunity to go in and pick a photo that they really think will work for them. Here's Arvada, and so the DCPA uses Box, which is kind of like a Dropbox type thing. So it's, you know, it's a paid thing. I don't think it's super expensive, but the Arvada Center is just using Flickr, which is also, I think, either free or pretty inexpensive. So where did that go? Sorry about that. So getting back into Arvada Center, so you can see on their Flickr, they've just got their albums of things. Picked one here that Abner, our friend Abner, was in. Stick Fly, great show. And so they actually have a nice feature in here where you can click on it and you can pick the size that you want. So when you go to download it, it'll ask you, you know, which size you want. So another thing is, like, just because it's on the site and it's a, you know, professional photo like this one, you know, this is one I might not use this because I can't see Abner's face, and so I might pick something else, and which is why it's great to be able to give people to give those media folks a chance to pick one that they think will work best for their page. So let's stop for just a second. Abner, do we have any questions or anything
Yes, Alex, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
We do have Shauna asks, will we be receiving a copy of the PowerPoint presentation? Thanks.
Sure. Yeah, I did put a couple of videos in here, so it's rather large. So I may strip those videos out and send it around that way. It's just a PDF or something. So,
Thank you.
so the next thing I want to talk a little bit about was, is earned media, which is, going out and shaking the tree to get somebody to write about, or do a piece about your show, whether it's, it's in print or TV, radio. We know that there are not nearly as many theater writers out there as there used to be. But the silver lining to that is that they're easy to track. Since there's only a handful of them. I pulled this one out of the Denver Post because it was the first review of a show I happened to notice in quite some time. It's they don't have a full-time theater critic anymore. Of course, we all know our friend John Moore is doing the best theater writing and coverage in Colorado, but a lot of people have never heard of the Denver Gazette, and so that's why it's important to be to kind of cast a wide net, so you can get it out there. But and so we have several other there's some bloggers and regular media outlets out there, and then I don't know, people like me maybe in the middle. But if you can get somebody to come see your show, it's probably going to be a positive, unless and I can't think of any of the folks that are writing these today that go around panning shows or anything like that. They usually give kind consideration to things, and it's generally going to be a plus to have it out there. So how do you get that to happen? It's like, well, ask. I go to more shows when theaters ask me directly. I just put this is just an email that Stephen White's from Butterfly Effect sent me last week, just saying, hey, here's a press release, and hope you can come see the show and check it out, and that's that. Took him 5 minutes to do those, and I'm sure he copied other folks as well. But it just can be as simple as that. So don't expect, there's limited number of people that can do these stories. And there's a lot of theater going on. So if you want to try and stand out, just ask. The other part of that is, you've got, and we talked about creating your media list. There are very few, or perhaps almost none, of outlets that have people that are focused on that exclusively. It might just be the A&E editor that goes. If it's a small, if you're up in, Breckenridge or Evergreen or wherever, it may just be the main editor, might come out. So you don't know. So you just want to make sure that you're contacting them. And if you haven't established that relationship, just make sure you're sending it to the main editor or the managing editor, or if there is an A&E editor, those people. But the thing about lists is you gotta update them. You gotta try and stay on top of them. And then the next part is the milk that baby thing. So if somebody does create a piece of good news about your show or your theater or whatever, man, take it and run with it. And this is Miners Alley is always really very zealous about sharing out reviews, and you can see. So and then on the bottom there is their email newsletter, where they put in David Marlowe's as well as mine, and they send it out to their patrons, and that kind of stuff helps all tickets, and it's free, and nobody's going to say don't use that. And so you've got all these avenues from your email newsletter to social media, and putting it on your website. I know some theaters will actually create a page where they collect reviews of their shows. And if you want to print it out, put it on the wall. I don't know if it's still there, but I did a story about the candlelight a few years ago for the Denver Post, and they blew it up to I think it was about 8 feet wide and 4 feet deep. It was huge, and they hung it on their lobby wall. And, and I would see people reading. I don't know if it's still there, but that's another way to do it. But anyway, you can get it out. It's like, take advantage of that. So in addition to reviews, I think Stephen Burge is on here. This was one that he pitched me when he was at the Fox. And Janai Barris was doing this great show, Hurricane Diane, and she was pregnant. And they worked it into the show, and he just reached out and said, hey, this is kind of a cool story about this production, and so that's just one example. So if there's a really interesting person who's in your show, if there was some just some story, some sort of a news hook. It could be, like that personal story. It could be, some just kind of a unique twist, like this pregnancy. I put in here, a curious production angle. We're using live monkeys, stuff like that is all something that you could translate into a story that will help publicize the show. And like I said, especially with these smaller media outlets, they are looking for that. They don't have staff to be tracking stuff down, so they're usually going to be pretty receptive to getting these kinds of suggestions. I think for those who are here at the top of the webinar, Abner noted that Matt Meyer from Ligature Creative, who does the marketing for Cherry Creek Theater, was going to be joining us, and I think he had some sort of a family emergency or moving emergency or something. So he was going to talk about websites and stuff. So this part isn't quite as fleshed out as I would hope. But I will talk a little bit about websites, because of course it's hugely important. It's the front door to your theater online. And I was just kind of picking out some home pages that I was looking at, and I would say most theaters are doing a pretty good job. Sometimes some of the smaller theaters, they don't have as much resources, but there's Open Stage again, Bryce. Some of these sites, most of them do a pretty good job of being able to show people what they're looking for, what they need, getting them to the box office so they can buy tickets. Things like that. But I would say that, if you're not loving your website, there are, quite a number of ways to soup it up. I do think that using a calendar like this, and many theaters do, some don't. This happens to be the same calendar I was talking about that both Onstage Colorado and the Colorado Theater Guild use. It's called the Events Calendar. And it works on WordPress sites, and they have a free version, but if you pay, I think it's like $100 a year.
So, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's very reasonable. When you pay for the pro version, you can enter things with recurring events, and you have more ways to display. You can show things by like a month view like that, or you can show by lists, or I think. David, you guys, CTG uses like the photo view, I think, a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, yet another reason to send good photos over, if that's what they're doing. So I think that's if you're on WordPress, this is one example, but there are certainly other solutions for that. And I think this is Creed's calendar, and so this is I think this also looks like the events calendar to me. But you can just see, like, if someone is going on this website and they're looking for information about shows, it couldn't be easier, than this to be able to see things really easily, rather than just, lists or something like that. So if you don't have a calendar, function on your website, and your website allows that kind of thing, I would definitely recommend it. So David, you were going to jump in here a little bit about websites. Have you do you know what kind of traffic you get on your calendar, or like what kind of how much activity is on there? Or?
There's a fair amount. Of course, we also get a fair amount of activity on our auditions and jobs page, which is not, and it's a different plugin. But to your question, I don't have the stats here in front of me, but we do get a fair volume. People going through and looking at the from our website across the top. It's called Find a Show for upcoming events. But one thing you mentioned earlier that I think is very important is that, is having a graphic, whether it's a photo or just, a graphic that somebody's generated for that show. We're all visual, in our what we're looking at both online and websites and Facebook and so on. So it's very important to have a good looking graphic for your show.
Yeah, it really is. And that's another thing. And it was something that I was going to mention. I didn't have time to put it in here, but I really like this. It's an online site called canva.com, and I'm sure some of you are already using it, but I've never seen anything that's made it more easy to survive without a graphic artist on staff. It makes it really easy to just create graphics on the fly. It's got a lot of clip art and other things in there, and you can use your own colors and your logos and things like that to create those things. But also as soon as you start rehearsals, you've got opportunities there to start taking pictures and short videos and things like that. Not that you wouldn't necessarily use videos on here, but you could send them in as well. So yeah, so make sure you've got something good there. But the other thing I was going to mention is, so I happen to use, I think David, have you built the CTG website from scratch, or did you use a build?
Well, we redid our website in 2020, so about 2+ years ago. And from that, pretty much from scratch. We're on our second developer at this point. Our first one retired, but actually, and our person that does the day-to-day, data entry from both our events and our auditions is actually also our web developer. So we contract with her to basically, keep that up and running.
Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely one way to go. If you don't have that kind of resource, this just happens to be the one of the pre-built websites from the Avada theme, which is a WordPress theme, and you can take like this beautifully designed site and go in and just make it all yours. You can change the colors. You can this one maybe is probably maybe a little bit more than you might want, but this is an event template that they have on there, and that if you're already on WordPress, you can buy a theme like this. I think it's like $70, and that's for all time. So it's just another thing to keep in mind is if you think your website looks bad, you don't have to live with that because you think you can't afford it, because there's definitely there's a lot of options out there for building this stuff, and there's like Wix and I don't know, there's all kinds of them. But I really like Avada. It was what I built my site on. It's got probably more bells and whistles than I know what to do with, but I think it turned out pretty well.
Hey, Alex, before we stop for maybe a break, there is a question that comes in from Avery Anderson. He wrote, does anyone find any use in Facebook events and their calendar? I have seen a large drop in their engagement and have moved away from using them, but would love feedback from others. What are your thoughts on that specifically, Alex?
Yeah, Facebook is popularity is waning. As we keep reading, it's like they're shifting to TikTok. A lot of them, maybe not my generation, but yeah, I've never used Facebook events. I would say if it's free and it's not that much of a hassle to put them in there, I would do it anyway. And just to be in as many places as possible. There's also you can also pay to boost some things on Facebook. It might be worth spending $100 on a production, just see how that works for you, because that's kind of like their that's the best way to get something to show up a little better, is to put a little money behind it for Facebook and probably some of the other social platforms.
One thing you talk about Facebook, we have not really used the the event feature very much, so I don't have a lot of experience with that. However, it's another free resource is the Colorado Theater Guild group. We have almost 7,000 members out there, and I think that's a great place to post your event. Now, granted, most of those people are going to be theater in the theater industry, as well as end users, customers. That's another opportunity, and it doesn't cost anything. You just have to become a member of that group. We do keep track of what's posted. There's only been a few that we've shut down, but that's primarily because of the pictures involve nudity or obscenity, that kind of thing. But yeah, use our Facebook group as a means for publicity.
Yeah, yeah. You heard.
Great, thank you, Alex. And then just one more question here from Marty Dolly. Asks, can you give that name too? Which pre-built site did you mention? Was that the Canva, or did you mention the other one?
That was Avada, which is
That's right.
AVADA. But there's a number of I mean, there are plenty of free themes on WordPress as well. The ones that you pay a little bit for tend to be a little more robust in their features and the quality, and also quality of support if you want to have support. So I had just a couple more slides here. These are kind of just odds and ends to kind of throw out there. These are some of these are marketing basics, like setting clear goals. If you're going out, is your goal to promote just that one particular show, or do you have a larger goal of promoting the theater? Figure out if you're just going to narrow it down like that, or throw a wider net, and that might be dictated by the time in your schedule. If you're between shows or something like that, you might do something different. But and if you are doing advertising, really do your research on where that's gonna make the most impact. I honestly don't know how much a display ad in a newspaper is going to help you. I think you'd probably be better off spending a few bucks on boosting a Facebook post, or I don't know what I don't operate in that world, so I don't know all the options that are out there. But it never it's if you're going to spend money, make sure it's well placed. There's tons of information online about how to do that kind of stuff. But some of the ideas, some of the things can come from just looking at other theaters. One of the beautiful things about the websites is that you can always go on and just see what other people are doing and copy it, and replicate it, and do some of the cool stuff that you like from other sites, and just do it on your own. And not just that, but like, what else are they doing? Are they doing are they posting rehearsal videos on TikTok, or whatever it is? If it looks like if it caught your attention, chances are you can make that work for you as well. Hashtags, of course, anything that's going online, you can hashtag to make sure to extend the reach that way. I think video is underused, and I do think I keep mentioning TikTok, not because I know anything about it. I don't even have a TikTok account. I just know that it's I know that it's getting a lot of attention. It's definitely attracting younger people who don't even use Google a lot of times to search for like a restaurant or something. They go on TikTok. I don't understand that, but it's there. And so the thing about TikTok that is and other other things in that vein is that you don't have to have anything fancy. It doesn't have to be a Ray Bailey production that spend a bunch of money on. You can just shoot a 10-second video of your cast members partying in the dressing room or something, and put that on there, and that's fun. It gives you some attention about your show. So and there's also things that you can do, and I would imagine a lot of theaters have tried different things, but doing promotions, partnerships with restaurants, loyalty programs where you've got people reading your newsletter, and You know, there's things you can do, like, you know, you could maybe discount tickets for them a little bit. Even if you gave somebody $5 off, they still feel like they're in the, you know, kind of getting some kind of an inside deal or something. You know, I work for a really large tech company, and one of the things that this is maybe back more when we were all in the office, but they're always looking for things to events to center around, whether it's like a, you know, a murder mystery or a escape room or things like that. And I know I've seen more of this at like the dinner theaters, where they'll, you know, there'll be a whole group there because of the dinner aspect of it. But I still think that that's, you know, that could be a real cool thing, you know, especially if you live, you know, if your theater's near the tech center or some other big company, you know, check it out. Maybe you can sell the house to their company for a night or something like that. So, I was talking about, you know, just using those rehearsal pictures. And this is another, so social media it's free, and it can involve a lot of people. So get your cast involved, get their friends and family posting and reach and sharing that stuff that's being created, whether it's on rehearsals or whatever. Get them to, you know, to repost or retweet or whatever, that review or even that calendar listing. You know, enlist them because they're probably they're motivated to get people in those seats too. You know, there's some other opportunities. You know, some of the small radio stations, you know, might have some free spots in radio. Radio, of course, has enormous amounts of time that they have to fill. So I think they've got a little more real estate for that. But you know, I think the final message that I would leave you with is, you know, is just making time for this. You know, you don't have to be an expert on it. None of this is brain surgery, but you do have to devote a little bit of time to it. If you're not doing a whole lot right now, there might be a little bit more upfront that you've got to work on. But even if you're, you know, an old pro, like some of our marketing people that are on here today, there's always more you can do. There's always new things that you can explore to get your message out. But you know, maybe it is that dark Monday that you set aside to work on it, improve it.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Alex. Hey, I know we've got some questions here and some comments on the chat thread, but I do want to give folks a chance to attend to anything they want to attend to. So we're going to take a quick break and then come back right at 8 o'clock for any questions, some dialogue with Alex, and anything that you may want to share. So thank you so much. This has been great so far. We'll see you back at 8 o'clock. Thanks.
Right.
Hey, welcome back. Welcome back. Alex, do we have you? Hey there.
Yeah, I
So
just
we
put up this very unscientific poll. If
oh,
people can answer it.
wonderful. Do you want to address the poll first before we take your questions or comments?
Um, yeah, like I said, it's pretty unscientific, but you know, I'll just take a look at it here. So it looks like, there's a mix of, what people spend, if you're, a pretty small theater and you don't have, more than a couple $100, these are definitely some good tips to, try and, what you can't spend money on, you can spend some time on if you've got the time. So, um, so this is pretty encouraging, that people are spending more than five hours a month, which is a fairly low bar, I guess I would say. But and this is also good that people are keeping their media list updated. But this is yeah, it's good. Sometimes you could do better. Contacting media, people are doing that. And yeah, it looks like, at least some of these folks are very comfortable making their own show graphics and stuff. So yeah, I don't know how informative that was, but I wanted to try the poll feature of
Yeah.
Zoom webinar.
Well, we have a few folks have written in, and I have first Leah Kosach, who's an invaluable resource with the CTG board and helps a lot. Is involved in many different things. She made a couple of comments. She says, I use it, assuming she's talking about Facebook. I use it sometimes depending on the concentration of patrons, but now that Instagram has an event component, I'm using that a lot more. That was one of her comments. I don't know, Alex, if you have a response for that at all, or if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, Instagram is not something but I know a lot of people using it, and also again, it's a great visual medium that you can use that stuff that just comes naturally out of your productions.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. And then she also writes, it's all dependent on the type of event and the calendar integration. But since Facebook changes things without notice, we do see what happens with event management engagement for CTG when that occurs. So there's a possible challenge there that they have. Is that something that you have encountered?
No, like I don't use Facebook events, but that's a great comment from Leah to just keep in mind.
Just to keep in mind. Moving along, Kelsey Kinzer, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, writes, I used to work as an ad specialist. FYI, Facebook brand awareness campaigns are great bang for your buck. They get a ton of impressions at a low cost. So a plug for Facebook brand awareness campaigns, which I don't even know about. And then Diana Gilboa writes, what radio stations give free airtime, if any? Is that something you're familiar with, Alex?
Yeah, it was just something that used to be a thing, but like, I would look on Colorado Public Radio's website, KUNC. I think there are some other, there's one, there's some other smaller public radio stations, but also some of the mainstream stations. I used to live up in Frisco, and Crystal 92. I know that they had some of that space available. So I guess it's just a matter of finding out, or maybe if it's not free, maybe it's it's low price for a nonprofit or something like that. But those, I think those can be valuable, because people that listen to public radio are definitely in our wheelhouse as patrons of the arts.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that, if there are any other questions or comments folks have, feel free to go ahead in the question and answer feature on the bottom of the screen there. Go ahead and utilize that. Oh, I see one just came in. from Leah Kosach. She writes CPR, KUNC. Oh, she's talking about the public radio down in Colorado Springs, and podcasters. Podcasters, not just in theater, love interviewing theater folks.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got some local theater podcasters, media podcasters, people who are interested, but like there are people who do comedy podcasts and people who do podcasts on any number of subjects. So it's about proximity of subject matter, but I'm always interested in talking to people who are not in the know about what we do and provide that insight. It's the little behind the scenes peek to make it exciting for folks who are not in the business. And then I just do a lot of outreach to proximal community groups. So even if you don't think a particular group would have interest in your play or musical, like don't discount it. Make your circle of outreach such that everyone will have some knowledge about the show, maybe not super in depth, but they'll have at least heard about it, and then can maybe come to your website or your social media to ask questions if it's not already crystal clear from your website where you do your event profile or your ticketing stuff. Like, we want to make this as easy as possible for anyone who does not have readable access to not feel discouraged to coming to something, or to have a digital access point too. Digital streaming, digital events, hybrid events, all of that stuff.
Thank you, Leah. Terrific. Terrific. Alex, I'll hand it back off to you.
Well, I don't have anything else to add other than to say I really appreciate people showing up. You can get in touch with me through my website. I'm happy to answer any questions about anything at all times, pretty much. Because I do it out of love for theater, and I wanted to reflect. I want to do everything possible for all the theaters in Colorado. So maximizing these tools is really a good way to start. And there's, like I said, there's always more we can do.
Always the more we can do. Alex, I want to thank you. This has been wonderful. A number of people have asked about the link to be able to view this material afterward. What can you share with them with regard to being able to access this presentation later?
I think David said I'll get the file to David, and he'll put it on the YouTube channel for CTG. I think that's what you said, David. And then that'll be shared out to this.
Now, you had said, Alex, that you'd be willing to share the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you'll send that to me or link to me. Typically, what we do with our workshops is I'll send out it's basically a link for asking for feedback. How did we do? And in that, I will have both the link to the video and the a link to the PowerPoint.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Well, Alex, and before we let you go, already we have some feedback. Marty wrote, "Thanks, that was very helpful. I'm helping a startup with no publicity at present. Great list of ideas for them." And then Stephen Burge says, "Thanks, Abner and Alex. I appreciate you." We do appreciate you, Alex. This is a wonderful resource for folks. And certainly, if you have further questions, don't hesitate to reach out to on CTG's website. That's coloradotheaterguild.org. You can reach out to Alex as well, and look for that YouTube link coming out. It'll be available for that brief time that David mentioned earlier. But this has been a pleasure. It's great. I'm so glad that so many of you showed up. And with that, I will let you go. Oh, wait a minute. Do we have another? Let me see here. Oh, no, I thought we had another question. Okay, folks.
All right.
So long.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.